not give us this religion to make us feel like remorse over the past. The Quran, one of the great functions of the Quran, the purpose of the Quran, Allah says, إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَذِكْرَى لِمَنْ كَانَ لَهُ قَلْبٌ. It is a powerful reminder for someone who has a heart. So anything related to the heart, the most comprehensive answers for how your heart should feel is in the Quran. And in the Quran, if someone has lived a life of sin, or a life of forgetfulness, or a life of mistakes, or a life of neglect, etc., does Allah say you should now feel guilty until you die for how you have lived? Does the Quran ever do that? The Quran is more protective of Allah is more protective of His creation's heart than even the creation themselves. Allah cares more about my heart than I do about my own heart. You understand that concept? So if Allah does not shame or guilt me about my past mistakes or neglect, all He asks is do one thing. What's that one thing? Make tawbah and then fix yourself. And then you might slip again, and if you slip again, what should you do again? Make tawbah and fix yourself. And if you can do that, you don't have to live in what? Guilt or shame. You don't have to live in guilt or shame, you know? And what we've done is we've created a mindset, and I'll tell you where this comes from. Allah forgives easily. Allah is actually eager to forgive. But people don't forgive easily. If you hurt your mother's feelings, even if she hugs you, something is still hurting her in her heart. She's not capable of letting go of some of that pain. Yaqub alayhi salam is not capable of easily just letting go of the years of abuse his sons did to him. You understand? They can make tawbah. And by the way, who can forgive his sons immediately? Allah can. Wipe the slate clean. But who cannot forgive immediately? Yaqub alayhi salam. He can't do it. He can't just do it. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam in one narration couldn't look at Wahshi. He accepted Islam. What do we know about accepting Islam? What happens to all your sins? They get wiped out. Wiped out by who? By Allah. In fact, accepting Islam is a kind of tawbah. And tawbah means all your bad deeds get converted into good deeds. That's how much Allah loves. فَأُولَٰئِكَ يُبَدِّلُ اللَّهُ سَيِّئَاتِهِمْ حَسَنَاتٍ. Allah replaces their evil deeds with good ones. That's Quran's promise. But the Prophet ﷺ is still a human being. And he sees the one who mutilated his uncle. Right? So he can't see. It's not that he doesn't forgive him, but he can't forgive him the way Allah forgives him. Now what happens with us coming to 2024, 2023, and this era that we live in and we're heading towards, what happens now is people use Islam because we make each other feel bad anyway. Okay, I can make you feel bad for coming late, or I can make an employee feel bad for making a mistake, or I can make a family member feel bad, or they can make me feel bad, or you never call, you never do this, you never do that. We guilt each other all the time. But now we've done a new thing. We use Islam to guilt each other. It wasn't enough that we're guilting each other. Now we added, Allah doesn't forgive when you do this, right? Allah does that, right? Allah. So now we're using Allah to make sure someone stays inside their guilt. Now we use God as a weapon, basically, to guilt and shame someone. What does the Quran do? Make tawbah and move on with your life. What do people do? I will not let you move on with your life. You don't get to move on with your life. You have to stay exactly where you were. Know your place. It's as if Allah wants one istighfar, show of humility, and move on, and human beings want constant sajda. Human beings almost want, I want you to worship me to the point where you keep begging for forgiveness and begging for forgiveness, and then I'm going to say, your sorry's not good enough for me. Your sorry's not. God doesn't even demand that. Can you imagine if we had to beg Allah for forgiveness for everything we've done and it wouldn't be good enough? Can you imagine? Then it wouldn't even be right for us to ever get up from sajda. Ever be even to get up from it. So the guilt you're feeling is actually not just you. There's a cultural, anthropological, collective guilt society that we've created. And in that society, you're supposed to live feeling bad about yourself. You're supposed to live in shame. You're supposed to live in regret constantly. Do we regret our mistakes? Absolutely. Should we turn and try to make things right? Absolutely. Should we make istighfar? Absolutely. But then we should move on. We just move on. Musa alayhi salam's story is one of my favorites because he actually accidentally killed someone, but he did throw a punch. How do you get over that? How do you get over that? And you know what? When he goes to challenge Musa, challenge Fir'aun, when he goes to challenge Fir'aun, Fir'aun could just turn around and say, you're going to tell me what's right and wrong? You know what you did? Who are you to open your mouth? A murderer is going to teach, oh, a murderer is a prophet now? Really? You have no moral standing to be able to say what's right and wrong because you have a mistake in your past. Isn't that the logic? Guess whose logic that is? Fir'aun's. It's very powerful. It works. Because then someone says, look, I have mistakes, I shouldn't say anything. And then people turn that into a righteous thing. I have so many sins myself, I have so many mistakes myself, who am I to say anything about anything? I should just be quiet. And then anybody who's done any good should be quiet because they're aware of their flaws. So that nobody should speak the truth. Because is there anybody who exists that doesn't have sins? So if sins are the basis for which I shouldn't say anything or you shouldn't say anything, we should just be perpetually silent.